just a quick opening, and then I'll let you ask whatever questions you need. So, disappointing end of the season, obviously losing in the playoffs. 10-7 going into the playoffs, feeling pretty good that we can make a run, and to lose in the opening week of the playoffs. I mean, it's any playoff loss is painful, but losing the first round is difficult. And then the manner of which we lost, just stings a little bit more. So, the only thing worse than a loss is just you kind of have that feeling that you let people down. We got like 200 people in this organization, football, non-football. We're all representing them on the field, and just didn't play our best when our best was needed, especially in the second half. Obviously, fan base-wise, I mean, they're dying for a championship just like we are. So you have that little feeling of letting people down. But I will say this, I mean, we have our current team of players and our coaches are really mentally tough people. And that's not by accident, that's intentional. That's the type of people that we bring in here. It's important to us because you have to be able to withstand these type of situations, especially leading into off season. So that's what we're going to work on this off season is, we're going to lick our wounds a little bit here and then rise and fight again. And we got a whole off season to figure out, how we're going to do that. So, it was just a tough way to lose. Any playoff loss is tough. I've been through these before. I've lost a Super Bowl before. It feels awful. But you think that you have a chance to kind of go and just can't get there. So, but with that, I'll kind of open it up.
There was a lot of speculation with Brandon's Week 18 decision to have starters go out there, and then obviously the way the season ended. There was a lot of speculation about his job security and whether or not it was on the line. Was his job ever at stake?
No, I mean, that was probably more your discussion than ours. The front office's belief in Brandon hasn't changed. He's got our belief. Our players believe in him. I mean, you've been around him. He's a tremendous leader. He's detail-oriented, and he's a fighter. And, that's the type of people that I want to be with me, like going into competition. So understand the season didn't end quite the way we liked it, but no, he's got our full support.
And then that Week 18 decision to play starters, was that Brandon's decision? Was that a group effort, including the front office, or how did that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about a lot of things, and I've been in the league a long time. I have a lot of experiences with those situations in the past. There's no one right or wrong answer to that. There's different ways to handle it. I've seen it handled the right way. You think it's the right way, it doesn't work out like that. But in this particular case, Brandon kind of mapped out what his plan was, and yes, I'm going to support that. And so, and if you look at how we played in Jacksonville, how we didn't come out flat, we came out well, we played well to start the game, so that's a positive. Was that because we played our starters longer against Denver? I don't know that, but at least we came out well in the playoff game. Losing Mike Williams, not ideal, obviously. But like I said, there's just no one-size-fits-all answer on how to handle those situations. Hopefully we have that situation a lot moving forward. At the end of every season, we have to make that decision. Everyone is a little bit unique as far as those situations go, but I was behind him on that.
Brandon mentioned that the second half in Jacksonville sort of showed some of the weaknesses of the team where you guys need to work on. Do you agree with that interpretation? If so, what weaknesses did you see in that second half?
It always seems like whatever your weaknesses during the season are, they magnify in playoff games. It's the best versus the best, high stress, high pressure situations. And I agree with you. There were some things, like our run game throughout the season wasn't where it needed to be, showed up in the second half. There's a lot of things that kind of went down that path. We gave up that long touchdown in the second half. We gave up a lot of explosive plays during the season. There were some things that showed up, but again, like I said, you play 17 games, you can kind of see where your strengths and weaknesses are. You get in the playoffs, you're trying to minimize some of those, but sometimes they crop up like they did against Jacksonville. But I'd agree with you on that.
Now, the next months here, what has to happen for this team to be able to run the ball more effectively?
Well, we're going to probably have a new vision and approach on offense. That's one way to go at it. We'll always be a passing team. We have Justin Herbert. We like to throw the ball. We're never going to be a 50-50 balanced team of run and pass. But you do have to be able to run the football efficiently and effectively, especially in the second half of games where you have leads. We were unable to do that this year. If you look at where our rushing numbers will be, like I said, they're never going to be high rushing numbers as far as terms of yards. But yards per carry should be better. Like 2 years ago, our yards per carry were pretty good, top 10 in the league. This year, almost towards the bottom. So obviously, that's a big thing. We're going to probably look in the offseason because that has to get better to be a good playoff team.
Do you look at it as personnel and all the injuries that you guys went through? Do you look at it as schematics and coaching and preparation? It's a combination of those things?
It's all, yeah, it's just always a combination of all of that as far as how you put it together.
Tom, in terms of the offseason, one of the things that everybody will be focused on is Justin and a contract extension. Would you like to get something done this offseason, considering what that fifth-year number could be?
I haven't even really thought about any contracts right now with anybody, but obviously we want him here a long time.
So that'd be fair to say that you and Justin's representation haven't made contact about an extension?
We haven't talked to anybody about any contract. Season just ended, yeah.
Just heading into this offseason, you guys are projected to be over the cap right now. Obviously, the number will change depending on where
Right.
it settles. But how much different is this offseason going to be than past off seasons in terms of how you approach it, considering where you guys are at?
I don't know about other off seasons. It may be different than last year's off season. So, yeah, every year's a little bit different. This year will be a little bit different. Not as much space to work with, which is fine. But yeah, every off season will be a little bit different. But certainly this year will be different than last year's.
Tom, for you, just completing your 10th season, how would you personally evaluate so far what you've done as a general manager?
I don't answer those questions. I don't even know how to answer those questions. We're trying to put the best team on the field we can. I think if you look at this team and if you look at the glass 3 quarters full, we have some stars on both sides of the ball. We had the depth this year to withstand some challenging circumstances. We've got a coaching staff that's really they all have leadership ability. They teach really well. They were able to adjust on the fly this year. And locally and nationally, our fan base is really exploding. So that's the positives right there. Those we can build on that. So I'm excited about that. I love the people that I work with. So there's just a lot there in front of us right now.
Let me frame it a different way. I think a lot of fans would look at your resume, 10 seasons, 2 playoff wins heading into your 11th season, and the fans ask, why does this guy deserve to lead the team forward? What would you say to the fan base? Because they're asking that question.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm entitled to nothing. So, and I don't take my job for granted at all. Just what I told Lindsley. So, just there are some positives here. Understand that. I'm not sitting up here saying I deserve anything. That's just the way that it is. But I like where our roster is headed. I love the coaching staff, and we're going to add to that coaching staff coming up, certainly on the offensive side of the ball. And just seeing the passion right now, and just even meeting some of the fans in Jacksonville that travel to the game, and it's an exciting time here. But like I said, I'm not entitled to anything. I just come in. I work really hard at what I do. I put all my time, effort, energy into this job, because if you don't, you can't compete at this level. And I've had great support from the Spanos family, and it's been like that since the day I arrived.
How would you describe now after 2 years working together, just kind of yours and Brandon's visions, how they've come together, and how to go forward?
Yeah, anytime you work with somebody, the longer you work with them, the smoother, more efficient it is. We see things similarly most times. You don't want to be 100% of the time. You need to have some give and take and some counter arguments. But I really enjoy working with them.
When you guys hired Brandon, there was obviously a lot of discussion about, he was a defensive coordinator, defensive coach coming up. How was the offense going to work for Justin? Obviously, a lot of questions about why not go with an offensive-minded head coach. How much concern is there now that you're going to have to, bring in a new offensive staff, a new offensive scheme? Is going to be Justin's third system in 4 seasons, and in relation to the decision to go with Brandon in the first place? How concerning is where you guys are at in terms of offensive scheme?
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I don't so much buy into the offensive defensive coach mentality. I've seen a lot of defensive coaches have good offenses, develop quarterbacks. So, yes, we'll have a new coordinator this year. I don't think you ever want to play scared, where we don't want to make a change because we're afraid how that change may affect. I mean, we're trying to get better. So it's going to be a little different vision and approach. Not worried about how Justin will adapt to that change. But we're just trying to improve and get better. That's the thing. So not too much worried about that.
Brandon said that you guys can reach another gear on offense. Are you guys a couple of players away? How far do you guys feel like you're away from that?
Yeah, that's a tough question, Fernando. I mean, You try and improve each year. It would be impossible to put a number on how many players away or the style of players or type of players. Obviously, we'll lose some players this offseason. We'll add some players, but it's a tough question to answer. I do think we have a good core. If you're talking about offense specifically, I think we've got a core there as far as protecting the quarterback, throwing the football. You know, we've got Austin Eckler here, so, but, you know, too hard to say how many players away are we.
Do you think you guys can get the explosive plays more consistently simply by bringing in a new play caller, or does the personnel need to change, particularly adding speed at wide receiver?
Good question. If you talk to the people that work with me and for me, like, I want speed at every position on our roster. So that's kind of the philosophy that always has been. So, you know, would I love a explosively fast stretch the field receiver? Absolutely, would love to have that. Not going to give back Keenan Allen. Not going to give back Mike Williams. Not going to give back Josh Palmer. This past year, our dual punt kickoff returner was DeAndre Carter, who was going to have a smaller role in the offense, ended up having a bigger role due to injuries, had a really nice year for us. You know, I wish our fifth receiver was Lance Allworth. It's not. But I think with what we have, you know, Josh has shown the ability in college in the SEC to get behind some people. I mean, he's not a 4.4 receiver. He's like about 4.50, 4.52. Mike Williams is 6'4", 220, runs 4.5, and can really affect people deep. They have to account for him. It may not be the style what everybody likes because he's not running 4.3, but it's effective. I mean, he led the league in yards per catch, almost 20 yards per catch a couple years ago. So he can affect people down the field. Different style, obviously. So I like our group of receivers. I would love to have some speed there. We'll see how that kind of works out. But I agree with you. There's different ways to be able to improve there. Some of it's just by pure speed talent. But I think we have some guys that can do that in different roles. And then schematically as well. So, but it's definitely something we need to add to our repertoire as far as being able to get down the field just a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be 40, 50-yard throws. It could be the intermediate 15 to 18-yard crossing routes. So, but I will say, like, you know, Mike Williams, people have to account for him deep down the field, even though he may not be the style of what you're talking about.
But just with Mike, it's not necessarily the aesthetic of it. It's how fast he is getting to those areas. And if you have a 4.3 guy versus Mike, the protection has to hold up longer for Mike to get to that spot versus somebody else.
I mean, I've seen Mike make a lot of catches deep down the field, a lot. And that, you know, that counts just as much as a little guy running fast down the field. So Mike Williams is an incredible football. He averaged 20 yards a catch a couple years ago. So I'm not going to argue with that. But would I love a big 4.3 receiver? Yeah, are you kidding me? Absolutely. But I like the guys we have too. Like, I'm not giving those guys back.
Does speed and scheme go hand in hand though? Because 2 years ago, when everybody marveled about Justin and his deep throw, there was a little bit more balance in the run and pass game. Like you said, you're never going to be 50-50.
Correct, yeah.
I
I think,
be maybe
yeah.
more 60-40.
I think, and Brandon's talked about it, you know, it's, you marry that run to the pass, that helps, obviously. Yeah, like I said, we're not going to be 50-50. I wouldn't want to be. I just think this is a passing league overall. But yeah, I agree with you.
What goes into that, the marriage of the run and the pass? Because Brandon's talking about that. Is that just an intention from the coaching staff in terms of how you're designing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this play action too, make sure everything looks the same, and, you know, your run plays and your pass plays look very similarly.
But why wouldn't that exist already in the offense?
It exists in all offenses. It's just how efficiently can you do it.
Tom, with, going back to the offensive coordinator, what are traits that you would like to see higher in a coordinator?
You know, the one thing we always talk about has nothing to do with X's and O's. It's leadership, and which is what, you know, Joe Lombardi has, leadership. That was great. I mean, you got to have that as a coach, certainly as a coordinator, because you're leading that group. But that's the first thing we look at is leadership, and the ability to teach and communicate, and those both go together. You know, you're dealing with a lot of players. Everybody learns differently, so we have to treat them all differently, but be able to really teach the concepts, you know, in a simple manner. There's a lot that goes into it. Those are two things. I like to look at their backgrounds of where they're from, who they've learned from, you know, things like that. So.
Does experience matter for OC right now?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, I think we're probably going to have a pretty wide scope of what we're going to look at and see what it narrows down to after that.
You mentioned not wanting to give up Keenan. cap situation is, he would be, a tempting cut in terms of trying to get under the cap. Is that an option for you guys moving forward?
It's not tempting to me. I mean, good players make money. I mean, I'd rather have a lot of good players on our roster than a lot of cap space.
Something that Joey Bosa said during the locker room, point out among a lot of things. He said at Ohio State they had a mentality that they can't lose, but that here he hasn't necessarily felt that. And like the second half, he said there was a collective sense of, oh gosh, what's happening, and he felt that. Whose responsibility is to change a mentality like that if one of your veteran players says that seeps into the team? Like who takes
Yeah, I didn't really, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that during the season. I didn't even feel that during the game. Now, there's each individual person maybe have different feelings. But there's been, especially when you have the quarterback we have, you're never out of a game, and I've never felt that. I even felt against Jacksonville, like, we're going to get a stop here. I mean, that's a high-level question. I can't answer that for every specific person. I know what we're like in the building, especially on Mondays, or not Mondays, but Wednesdays in the team meeting after a win, after a loss. And I think we have a very mentally tough group of players. That to me is not an issue. And like I said, that's very intentional as far as how we build a football team. Joey is in that game, I think his passion probably superseded his poise a little bit in that game. But he wants to win more than anybody. Love having him on our side. But I think that's that to me has not been an issue with me as far as when I look at our football team.
Was that, you've known Joey since he got here, I mean, was that, is it troubling the way his behavior and just how it looked and just, I mean, I think that could reflect on the entire franchise.
No, I mean, look, I love Joey. I trust him. He also knows that what he did, just that can't happen. Look, we make mistakes. I make plenty of them. We all do. So yeah, that's it was unfortunate. I didn't like it, but I trust Joey, and he'll learn from that.
Tom, what's it going to take for the defense to take the next step or improve? Because for all the money you invested during the offseason, the returns didn't measure up. Yeah, the overall returns. The positive is I thought we played well down the stretch. I think you saw what the defense can get to, and that was with an interior defensive line that really played well down the stretch, but that was typically wasn't what our vision was going to be for what the inside was going to look like. And then our vision on the edge didn't quite get there because Joey was hurt most of the year. So, but I thought our secondary played really well. And I saw that most of the year. I know we gave up some explosive plays. We got to fix that. But we were competitive on the football. We challenged a lot of routes. I thought the inside linebackers played really well. Saw some really nice development there. And my expectation is when we hit training camp, we're going to hit the ground running this year. I did feel last year with that many new faces on defense, there would be a transition period. It was going to take some time. It took a little longer into the season than I would have liked, for whatever reason. Maybe we get some guys down, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But we saw it towards the end where it can get to. So I just think this offseason, once we hit training camp, we should hopefully hit the ground running with that group. Where does run defense rate as far as improvements? Because your yards per carry was numbers not seen since the late 1950s. Yeah, our first down defense and really first down offense need a lot of improvement there. And I agree, like the Jacksonville game, there was one drive we didn't get them to third down, mostly because we didn't defend well on first down. Now, don't forget, not like teams run the ball every first down, so there's also passing involved there. But there's got to be major improvement there. And we got the one thing about the NFL, it's the longest offseason in professional sports, so we got plenty of time to try and figure that out.
You mentioned the inside linebackers. Drew Tranquil took on a bigger role this year, calling the signal from the huddle. Counting staff played well, all those types of things. Last year, you guys let Kaiser walk. The explanation was sort of that it's just positional value type thing with inside linebackers in the scheme. Does that change with Drew this offseason in terms of the role that he's taken on and how he played, or is it sort of the same approach to that position as last year?
Haven't even remotely gotten into looking at personnel for next year yet. Drew had a tremendous year as a player, as a leader for us. I know when we drafted him, we felt like he had the ability to be a captain for us in time, and that's kind of what he is. I mean, he's just a great leader, great feel, represents our team really, really well, but plays well as well. So we have a lot of puzzles pieces to kind of work in this year to try and figure out what's the best makeup of our team going into next year. Obviously, contracts and money are all part of it, so we'll get into those discussions as we get into, February and try and map it out. But we'll see how it works out.
Oh, it wasn't a follow-up.
I was just to ask, with just the amount of injuries you guys had this year and some of the kind of regressions during those recoveries and whatnot, will you guys evaluate kind of your athletic training staff and kind of the medical side of how things are done here?
Well, don't forget the athletic training staff is treating the injury that already happened. So it's not necessarily, the reason why a player's getting hurt. But the one thing, we had some injuries this year. Overall, we were slightly above the average. So I wouldn't call it an epidemic. There were a lot of teams that had a lot worse off than we did. We weren't even in the bottom third. Last year, we were in the top 5 healthiest teams. So I don't really see, every team has to try and get through some different points of the season with injuries. I understand that. We did that this year. I thought we did that pretty well, both by the depth we had and the coaches adjusting to what we had. But I kind of think the injury narrative is a little bit overblown unless somebody has numbers that can show me differently. We were a really healthy team 2 years ago. This year, yeah, we were above the average, but it wasn't like we were in, the bottom of the league. So, but back to your original question. So each department of football operations, yeah, we evaluate every year and kind of see if we can get better, where we can get better, and that's kind of normal course of action.
I have numbers, but
There we go.
I don't believe in them.
Well, put them down for me. We'll talk about it at the next press
You told you
conference.
about a Justin game's loss. You don't believe in that. That weights certain players that play more versus.
I mean, you can wait, but even with that, we're still. But again, like when a player gets hurt, as far as time missed, I mean, they're all important to us. The injury doesn't necessarily because you're a starter, you're a backup. It's different to us. That's the same to us. So, but no, I'd love to see your data. We can talk about it next press conference.
Like losing Joey Bosa.
Oh, it's big. No, I'm not saying it's not big.
The same thing. Like that should be weighted similar.
Well, when you talk about like strength and conditioning staff, medical staff, that doesn't matter what type of player that is. But yes, Joey, it was a big. But when you compare to the rest of the league, we weren't in the bottom of the league.
What are you looking at metrically when you say that? Like just.
Well, I look at
games?
times missed, but I also look at who's getting hurt, of course, because that does affect on the field. But I'm also looking at the rest of the teams and who they have getting injured as well. So it's not just us; it's us compared to the rest of the league.
Following up on injuries, have there been discussions with the Rams or with the league about the turf at SoFi? Because the past couple of years, there have been significant injuries on that field, and most of your guys' major injuries were at home.
Yeah, no discussions that I know of. I've seen significant injuries at every stadium. So I read a great article about fields and written in The Athletic, so I thought that was very well researched. But I haven't heard any discussions about our particular field. I know it's a pretty new field turf. I haven't heard anything.
I know it's early in the process for him, but I mean, do you expect J.C. Jackson to be ready for training camp, or is it too early?
It's too early. What he has going for him is his age and the fact that he's in such great physical condition that he should be able to come back from this injury. I think I told you all before, it's not an injury we see that often. We see it from time to time. It's not like some other injuries where we can really have a good prediction of what that time to return will be. But he's been here rehabbing and he's moving along. But to have an exact time frame when he'll be ready, I'm not really sure yet. We'll probably know more. I'd expect deeper into the off season if he's ready for any type of OTAs or training camp. Kind of go from there.
Any updates or concerns on his off-field matter last month?
The one that was probably more personal related than anything else. But probably something we'll probably discuss more in the off season. But again, stuff like that's personal off the field. That's really for the player to take care of more so than us. It's family related.
How
Okay.
impressed were you with Jamari this year stepping in at left tackle? And do you feel like he's kind of earned I mean, obviously I don't want to talk about starters in January,
Right.
but do you feel like he's earned himself a role?
I mean, he saved us this year. And I wish I could say that I was smart enough to say we're going to draft him to play guard, but he can go out and play left tackle if Rashawn gets hurt and play really good football. That wasn't the case. He played tackle in college. That's the one benefit when you draft a tackle in college that you really see as a guard. You always know, hey, look, we could put him out there if we had to, because he has experience doing it. But he played guard most of training camp. Really played guard most of the beginning of the regular season. Maybe a little bit of snaps at tackle. I give our coaches great credit and Brandon great credit for not flinching at all and saying, look, this is what we have. We can make a lot of different moves on the offensive line, or we can make one move and put Jamari out there. I know we've only seen him do it in college, but he did it at a high level in the SEC. Let's take a look at it. And Jamari never flinched. I mean, he's got great poise and balance and patience at that position. And I think a lot of that's because he played it a lot at the college level and played at a pretty high level. And he played really efficient football for us at a critical position. So as we move into next year, as good as Jamari played, I feel pretty comfortable that Rashawn Slater will be our left tackle. But we'll figure out what the best role for Jamari is. And, that's it's a negative when a player gets hurt. The one little positive is other players get an opportunity, and now we know what he can do rather than thinking maybe he can do something. So, give us some flexibility. Do we see him at a guard or tackle for next year? I don't know yet. To be honest with you, I'm not sure.
I didn't take over for Rashawn, by the way.
Yeah, I know you don't. Yeah,
Somewhere else,
Rashawn's really good.
Yeah.
So
How do you judge how Trey Pipkins did at right tackle? Because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, so.
yeah, no, really, really proud of him. Number of reasons. His development of really turning into a starting right tackle in this league, and then really, how he handled his injury this year. I mean, he is tough, and he knew how much he meant to the team, and he played through some things that were really difficult. And to see his development from the time he got here to now is just, it's really, I'm proud of him, how much work he's put into it. So, yeah, he had a really, really good year for us.
Does it make the evaluation tougher just because you have like 4 games of tape of him playing without the MCL and then 12 games of him?
Yeah, I don't think, I think, him being here as long as he has, I think we have a pretty good feel for that, yeah.
I just wanted to ask about some of the other guys in the rookie class, just how you thought Zion played, where JT Woods is in terms of his fit, Isaiah Spiller. So obviously Zion played more, those other 2 guys were
Yeah.
sort of searching for roles all
Yeah.
season.
Well, JT and Isaiah, this will be a big offseason for those guys since they didn't get as many snaps their rookie year. Zion, really happy. He had his ups and downs like a rookie offensive lineman is going to have. I know when we drafted him, I said, you can't expect him to step in like Rashawn Slater did. What Rashawn did is just really uncommon. But Zion gives us an edge and a toughness inside. He's smart. If he makes a mistake, he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And, I just think he's got a really high ceiling. He's really mature. A lot of stuff we thought when we drafted him, you don't know till you see it at this level and see him out there. But he battled for us, and, I'm really proud of how he played, and I think he's got a long way to go.
Is the vision for JT still sort of the same as you guys relayed to us after the draft? Deep field safety guy that can, give
Yeah, I think so.
flexibility
Yeah.
to move around.
Yeah, I think so.
Why did that maybe materialize? I know all players develop at different rates. That's probably the answer, but I'll ask him anyway. Like, why didn't he carve out a bigger?
Yeah,
bigger role
well,
this year?
some of it is what you just said. Some of it's just on the players around him and how they're playing and how we use players. Things change a lot during the season a lot of times just based on injuries and, who's available, and we're going to adjust how we play. Same vision for JT. Not every rookie is going to play a large amount of snaps. Like Isaiah didn't get a chance to get as many carries as we would have liked. It's just the way it worked out. Still excited to see his development. So it's always a second year for these guys, always a really big off season.
How would you evaluate Nazir's year? He was in and out of the lineup a lot, starting, not starting. What are your thoughts on him?
He had some really good moments. Probably not quite as consistent late in the year, and then coupled the fact that Alohi Gilman was playing really well. So it's kind of, it's kind of went both ways with that. Alohi, in December and on, was really playing really good football for us. So it gave us a lot of flexibility depending on who we're playing that week, as far as what the game plan is, who we're going to use. Naz is a good football player. He's really athletic. He can run. He has range. This game means a lot to him. We've seen him develop from his rookie year all the way till now. but it's also nice having a secondary deep enough where depending on who we're playing and the type of offense we're going to play, we can put some different people out there. And Alohi did a really nice job for us as well.
It seems a little bit obvious, but what has Justin Herbert meant to this organization, and what does he mean to it going forward?
Well, that's a big question. What does he mean to the organization? I mean, I sleep better at night knowing we have a franchise quarterback. That's number one. Like he's done so much already in his young career, yet we all know there's still a lot there because of his commitment to the game. He's a perfectionist, and how much he does in preparation for his job, which when I've been around, all the great quarterbacks have that as far as what they do in the building to prepare for the next opponent and the amount of work they put into it. And then combine that with his physical ability. We're extremely lucky to have him. And we're going to kind of keep building around him and build a defense to get him the ball back and go from there.
When you say there's still a lot there, where are areas that you can see Justin taking another step or improving?
I wouldn't want to limit it. I mean, he's a young quarterback still. I'm surprised nobody has asked about the window that we all talk about, that you can only win in the window when a quarterback's on a rookie contract, which I just don't believe in. But, it's also nice that, when you have a veteran quarterback who's seen a lot of defenses and seen a lot of defensive play calls and has a ton of experience, that player is even better. And Justin will be at that point, and then we'll have to pay him a lot more. But no, I mean, every player, I don't care how good you are, there's always things to improve on every offseason. I'm not going to sit here and go through a list with him, but, he's the youngest quarterback in our division right now, which is a good place to be.
I think it was a good year for him. He went through a lot more adversity this year compared to the first 2 years. You think that's a good teacher for him?
Well, adversity is a great teacher for anybody, and especially at that position. But his mentality, talking about mental toughness and how he handles situations. If you're a player in the huddle and you're looking at Justin Herbert, there's no fear in his eyes, there's no flinch, and that's what great leaders have. So sometimes it does take some development to get there, to kind of go through those different battles and those different wars and see the success that you can have. Yeah, I mean, that's the type of guy you want in your huddle when you're moving the ball down the field.
How did you feel like Matt Miley played this year?
He did a good job. I mean, he did a good job. He's tough and he's physical. He's just a consistent guard for us. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to, I guess, grade it. But yeah, I mean, he's a tough, physical, doesn't miss a day of work guard.
How do you feel like Justin's grown as a leader?
I mean, I guess he's grown as a leader. He was a leader in college, so it's not like he wasn't a leader then. I'm sure he was a leader in high school. I don't go back that far with him, but I know he was a leader at Oregon. I will say, when you're a quarterback, and especially, when you're a starting quarterback as a rookie in this league, and you're in a locker room with a bunch of adults, 30-year-olds, 32-year-olds with kids, sometimes it's hard as a 22-year-old to walk right in and just take command of the locker room. I saw the same thing with Andrew Luck when he was with us in Indianapolis. So you do kind of grow into that leadership role as you get older, just like Drew Tranquil did. Drew didn't walk in our locker room as a rookie and take it over. He's a young player. So you do see that growth among these players as they mature and get older. And I think we've seen that with Justin. Everybody leads in a different way. So, and that's but I know one thing, our players and all of us front office coaches, we believe in them 100%, and we know just get them the ball at the end of the game, we got a chance to win.
There's been a few signings after the draft, Kyle, Morgan, Bryce, guys ended up having pretty big roles on the team. Just how valuable were those veteran guys that you signed after the draft to sort of fill out the rest of the roster?
It was hugely important. And like Kyle Van Noy, Foxy, and Callahan, and I'm sure we're missing DeAndre Carter. Those guys all played huge roles. And for some of them, like Kyle Van Noy, the vision of what we signed him for changed when Joey got hurt. And all of a sudden, he's going to play a lot more and play on the edge all the time. And what was cool about that is we get in December, and Kyle is now, he's an impact defensive player for us. we already knew he was a great leader, and he was a tremendous leader and a great mentor for the players, but he was just really tremendous down the stretch for us. But that's when you talk about, trying to add depth to the team. When Morgan Fox got let go from Carolina, it just didn't work out there. This is a great fit for him here. But those guys all made huge contributions for us. We had guys make contributions on special teams for us. I thought it was huge, just, with Josh Harris as our long snapper and, new punter and J.K. Scott. J.K. had a really nice year. We had 3 kickers that all kicked pretty well, except for that last kick in the Jacksonville game. 2 brand new gunners that did a great job for us, 2 young players. And so you need to have, some blue chip difference make players on both sides of the ball, but you need to be able to fill that in with other players that can play their roles at a really high level. And we did see that this year from some guys.
Do you
Go
feel,
back to Justin, will he have input or be part of the conversation as far as who you guys hire for offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I know that's what Brandon thinks, and that's the way I've always operated with, quarterbacks have kind of earned that. At least some context and some thought of what goes into the process and some input. Yeah.
what's your thoughts on Kenneth Murray? Because not only do you have an option to decide on Justin, but Kenneth will be due during the offseason as well.
Yeah, I thought he really came on this year. I thought he played really well. I thought both inside linebackers played well. It was actually a really deep group from top to bottom. But Kenny's just a really physical run and hit, kind of seek and destroy linebacker, really brings an edge to your defense. And, we saw that a lot more this year, and I thought he settled in really well. Was it perfect from week 1 to week 17? It wasn't perfect, a little bit up and down a little bit, but I really saw a lot of really high-level play from him this year. And, he brings that edge to the defense that we're looking for.
How encouraged were you by the way Michael Davis played in the second half of the year?
I was probably, I don't like to single out players, but as far as I couldn't be more proud of a player, how he played this year, from the start of OTAs to now, how he handled this situation. When you change, he was an undrafted free agent when he got here. He was playing in a specific scheme that Gus Bradley had here, and he just kept getting better and better and better to the point where he was a really good player for us, and we re-signed him. And then when there's a coaching change and a scheme change, things just don't happen overnight, and he just kept working at it, and he got his opportunity this year, and he just played lights out for us. And, without how he played, I don't know if we would have had 10 wins this year. Just so competitive on the football. He's just a rock-solid player for us, and I'm just really proud how he handled the whole offseason, the regular season. His play time fluctuated at the beginning of the year. Those are the guys you need here that can handle a situation. We talk about mentally tough players. Things don't always happen right away the way you want it to happen, and never fazed him. And he had a really tremendous year for us.
Brandon talked about perimeter run defense, particularly tackling on the perimeter at corner. Is that, in terms of improving that area, is that finding corners that can tackle better? Is it adjusting schematically so that your corners aren't in as many one-on-one situations? Like for you, how do you solve that from a...
Well, I like how our corners played this year. That Michael tackled really well. Asante can tackle well. He did have some misses. He's an excellent cover corner. They're not all Champ Bailey, but I love Asante because he competes every single down. I think tackling on a whole in our defense, I'd like to look at the numbers. It probably wasn't where it needs to be as a whole, I would assume. Yes, in this league, you got to be able to tackle on the perimeter with your corners and your safeties, and obviously it's a given for inside, but yeah, that's part of it. There's a lot of work that can be made there improvement-wise just with practice and technique. Because even though Asante is not the biggest corner in the world, he's tough and he will hit. It's just sometimes, that back coming through is, pretty big. So you may need a little bit of help along the way. But I think our corners played really well this year. Jasir Taylor started to play some more. Jasir can really tackle. He's tough and he's physical. So, but can there be improvement made there? Yeah, certainly.
At what point in your off-season process do you start to look at contracts and extensions and start to go through that process?
Pretty soon. pretty soon, just not as soon as this week. But I'd say within the next couple weeks, kind of start. I mean, Ed McGuire is always thinking about it. During the season, I try not to think about it, but inevitably you're just always kind of, it's always the back of your mind. But it's really something, I got to be 100% focused on it, and I just can't be 100% focused on it during the season. So give it a week or two. And like I said, we have a lot of puzzle pieces this year to fit in. It's a different offseason than last year. But we'll get into that more in February as far as contracts, as far as extensions and UFAs and our own players, and kind of go from there, see how the money fits.
How do you prevent blowing the third largest lead in postseason history from being a hangover or letting it linger, but also competing more consistently in big games against big teams? You were 1-6 against playoff
Yeah,
teams this year.
I think it's all the people that you have here and the mentality that you have. I mean, it's very cliche-ish to say this will motivate us in the offseason, but I'm not going to forget about it. That's kind of the way I'm made up. I'm probably not going to let anybody in the building forget about it. But if you have that fighter mentality, that's kind of way you're built. But one really good way to not lose a lead like that is to run the ball better in the second half. And it's not like that's something we just learned automatically. Be able to run the ball better in the second half and get off the field at least once in the second half on defense, and make a kick. Stuff that we already knew. But I don't know. Just as myself, I don't really dwell on those negative parts. And then as the leader, Brandon and myself as the leaders here, that's our job to make sure everybody has the right mindset. If somebody doesn't have that mindset, then we may have to find them a different home somewhere.
Do you feel like the resources are here to win? Because I don't know if you saw Sam Farmer's interview with Anthony Lynn and his comments about commitment and resources.
Yeah, I love Anthony. I just disagree with his assessment. And maybe he didn't quite mean it like that, because when Anthony was here, we were playing in a nice soccer stadium, but a soccer stadium nonetheless. So if you look at what we spent last year in free agency, I don't think you can say that. And then we're going to move into a state-of-the-art building, within a couple years. So yeah, I don't see any issues with the resources here based on how we attack free agency, how we pay our players, the building we're going to move into, the stadium we play in. So, yeah, I kind of disagree with that. But I'm guessing he didn't quite mean it like that, is my thought. Because like I said, when Anthony was here, we were going through a pretty big relocation and transition, and it was hard. And he did an amazing job really leading this team through that, as far as moving, playing in a soccer stadium for 3 years and trying to deal with all that. And, still had a winning record when he was here. But yeah, where we are now is just a lot different, just because we've been settled here for a little while.
With Khalil, obviously a lot of discussion after the trade about sort of what he would be, coming off the foot, 31 years old. Just how impressed were you with not only how he played, but like how many games, how many snaps he played this season? Yeah,
and we really didn't start even give him a little bit of rest probably towards later in the year in practice, because he'll work every day. Yeah, I mean, everything of what I had heard of him, because Brandon had been with them in Chicago, it was the same thing here. He was as advertised, as far as the makeup off the field, and then the player on the field. I mean, he's a warrior. He can play both sides of the ball as far as run and pass, and he had to do it in a situation where we really envisioned Joey being on the other side a lot more than he was. So, for a large part of the year, Khalil was probably the big attention for most teams, pass protection. And, we certainly needed Khalil this year. So, really happy we have him.